And tonight we're going to be speaking about creating 3D sketch-like render perspectives that bring back the magic of craftsmanship. And you'll see what that means as we unfold the evening. And let me tell you a little bit more about what's going to be happening tonight. Firstly, my name's Jason. I've worked for several commercial companies. We're going to speak about that now. And in my early career, I felt like I needed easier ways to work. We're going to take a look at a little bit deeper into what that means, really, because when it comes to family, you need time. And as a design architect, you need to be more efficient in what you do. It doesn't matter in which faculty of design that you persist in, that you need to be able to do things quickly, but also in a really professional, beautiful way. I live in Jerusalem, in the Middle East. This is an ancient city. Just to tell you a little bit more about me, a mix of the old and the new. I originally come from South Africa and have worked for companies in Africa, as well as here in the Middle East, very large commercial companies. That's my background. Jerusalem's a very vibrant place that's full of ancient architecture and markets and a lot of food and lifestyle. And as you can imagine, very vibrant Mediterranean country. And so what you'll learn in this masterclass tonight is a more efficient way of communicating 3D perspective to clients, a better way to connect with your clients and create rapport. So this is all about creating a stronger rapport with your client in the design conversation. And by doing this, you'll stimulate your design payments by 10x, and your production times will also speed up. You'll reduce pre-deadline stress with an easier stress-free method. You'll avoid the overwhelm that tech challenges us with, like photorealism, texture mapping, complex tech like softwares that you have no idea what they actually do, and you have to spend like 2 years trying to learn them to piece them together. You'll also learn easier ways to enhance your portfolio quality to secure more work. So besides doing work for your own company, or maybe you work for a commercial company, you'll also learn how to increase the quality of your work, so that if later in life or maybe during your career you want to get more work, you'll have a much more powerful portfolio at your disposal. And you'll also learn in this training how to retain full 3D design authority in your presentations, because what normally happens in the world of architecture is that we pan the work off onto visualization experts and we lose control over the process. And the same thing happens with the latest artificial intelligence. You lose complete control over what you're doing. So we've got about 40 people in the group. Let's move on. So the whole idea behind this process is client alignment. What does that mean? You know, we so often, as designers, building designers, architects, interior designers, concerned about our process. And we forget that there's a client. So it's super important to understand that the client needs to digest the work, and you need to be able to cut back on your complexity so that the client can relate to the work, which really is, it's so subtle, but it's so powerful, because most clients aren't trained as architects and designers. Yes, there are some that are developers and have been in the business for years, but there are many architects that think their clients have gone through an academic process just like they have. And so you need to distill imagery for your client. The most efficient way to do this is to streamline the production process and to make it time efficient, as well as impactful, to complement your narrative, your plans, your sections and elevations. So you're going to create a streamlined process for your 3D drawings. And we'll explain that in more detail right now, so that your clients can relate to your 3D process easily. And that's really what I'm talking about. You know, that's really how you package your design. And we're going to see some masters who have done it in the past. So who is this for? This whole presentation is for design architects, building designers, interior designers, urban designers, landscape architects, students of architecture. And especially if you're using Revit, if you're using ArchiCAD, if you're using SketchUp, Allplan, Vectorworks, Chief Architect, whatever software you're using to create and design, then this really is for you. It's an add-on to what you are already doing. And we're going to explain more about that soon. So why should you listen to me? And really, I mean, obviously, when I watch a webinar, I want to see that the person speaking has got some sort of experience, and so that I can confidently take his advice. And so the same thing here. I've spent 23 years creating design proposals for over 50 commercial mixed-use projects at the startup phase. So that's really my job. My job is a concept designer. Obviously, I'm a design architect. I qualified at the University of Cape Town. I've worked with Bentel Associates, with Light Architects, SVI International, MYS Architects, Empowered Spaces, and MRO. Most of these are all commercial firms, over 50 staff in each firm, some over 100 staff. So this all began for me to make my life simpler in my daily routine. So this all originated for me in that exact place. I wanted to make my life easier. I was arriving home late at night, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted to change the way I was working so that I could be more efficient as a design architect. I was paid to refine my process every day. So I was consistently being paid a salary, and I was focusing on this process. So I had a lot of time to experiment with all the tools out there, from Lumion, Twinmotion, V-Ray, Enscapes, Revit, ArchiCAD, and all the others. It's 3D Studio, and that's where I really started. So early in my career, it just was a really heavy process, and I needed to lighten up. So I've also been privileged to work online with people like Eric Bobrow, and with Revit Pure, Nick Catellia, and the Balkan Architect on YouTube. And I've been also privileged to work with Blue Turtle, who are a big architectural marketing company online as well. So very privileged to have been working with those people online. I've had hundreds of people through my training. So I've experienced, what they struggle with, and really, we've built some amazing communities. This is a little bit of the work that I've done. Just quickly, I'm just going to peruse through it. We start with planning, and then basically we create conceptual design around the planning, schematic planning, big projects. This is a 15-hectare project in Akure in Nigeria, towers in the Middle East, shopping centers, major retail shopping centers across the globe, urban design, city proposals, Bokoko, towers, museums, and manifesting a percentage of the work. So these are built forms. Some of these are hotels, shopping centers, Pretoria station there. And so many projects have been won through this process. So it's really important to be efficient and better at your perspectives to stimulate the design process. And if you become efficient at doing that, you can win more projects. What that means is, if you're a medium firm and you've got these tools at your disposal, you're going to be able to work quicker, in stealth mode, and impress clients really quickly. And that's what normally stimulates the design process. So this is an analogy. It's an analogy of what your drawings are actually doing to the client. So just pretend that these are the same people in image A and image B, but in image B, the architect is wearing a suit. And then in image A, the same architect is just wearing a t-shirt. You can see the tattoo on his left arm. And so it's the same person, but dressed in a different way. So the analogy is that your drawings can do the same thing. You can either make really amazing advanced drawings, or you can make like sort of average exports from Revit, ArchiCAD, Vectorworks. And that has an effect on the client, And unfortunately, the client in this image is happy in both images. But what I'm trying to say is that the analogy of having a silk suit dressed beautifully will have an effect on the client's mentality when he's speaking to you in a meeting. And the same thing with your drawing. So you've got to be very careful and precise at what you present to your clients, and it needs to be in a pleasant way. So this is the typical life of an architect. We taught at university or design school that you need to sleep through the night. That's the last thing that you want to do. It's not true. You can find ways to streamline your process and really make life easier. There on the right-hand side, we've got an architect burning the midnight oil, another student burning the midnight oil. So this is what you really want to be doing. You want to be obviously enjoying your friends, your family, your vacations, and really having fun, as well in your life. You don't want to be stuck behind the laptop. So that's exactly why you want to be able to leverage your skills. So Albert Einstein says intellectuals solve problems and geniuses prevent them. So what you need to do in a process is really, you need to learn from others that have been through a process and pivot off their lengthy process, because you could be saving years and decades sometimes if you manage to do that. So let's move on, guys. So this is the process that normally happens. You've got ArchiCAD, Revit, Chief Architect, and Vectorworks. That's an example. Obviously, there are more softwares out there. And so in between, you've got your average exports from these softwares. You could also be trying to create photorealistic renders, which aren't so great. A lot of architects have the ability to be too perfect, and so they spend too much time in this process. And a lot of people know how to hand render, but some people don't. So that's a very important slide. Remove complex render software from your workflow and add on to your existing workflow something that can help you innovate the process. This is really the wrong way to work. This is a design process. This could be 5 meetings, as an example, pre-design meetings or conceptual design meetings with your client, where you, at each stage of the process, you give them average renders or realistic renders. And the truth behind it is that what you need to realize is that there is a place for photorealism in your process if you are presenting photorealistic renders, but that's at the end of the process. You need a method before photorealistic renders that give you a faster sketch-like look and feel. So this is what I came up with in my career. I came up with the ability to use SketchUp and Photoshop together. And what that helped me do, I'm going to go to the next slide, is cut out all the photorealistic render softwares. So if I go back a slide, you'll see on the right-hand side here, it says 3D visualization platforms, D5 Render, V-Ray, blah, blah, blah. All the render softwares, I don't use them anymore. I don't need them. So it makes my life a lot easier because I don't have to deal with texture mapping. I don't have to deal with materials. And you might say, but no, at the early stages of the design process, when you get involved in materials, your clients start to focus on materials instead of your design. And then, so my suggestion is, at this stage of the process, at the end, you can do a photorealistic render. Photorealistic renders, when the design's locked in, are super important. So the evolution of the design studio, right? So what's the evolution of the design studio? So this is how it started off really around the times of Frank Lloyd Wright. And we're going to get into some really amazing stuff. So hold on to your horses. We'll be getting there very soon. This is how the design studio started off with drawing boards and basically really evolved in the 80s, 90s. This is what was happening in the world. People were designing like this on a drawing board. The drawing boards evolved. And then, boom, in the 90s, the studio became dual screen. So what happened in the design studio is that there were so many softwares introduced into the process. So it created a lot of confusion for people. And it took many years for Revit to take its footing and ArchiCAD to take its footing. And then other softwares come out and now AIs come out. And so the world is a little bit of a confusing place. So this is ultimately what happened to me, and I'm going to just explain it to you. This is a photorealistic render, and this is taken off the Chaos Group's website. And it's an amazing, amazing render, right? If you really take a look at this render, it looks like a photograph. And as you go through all of the images from the Chaos Group, you can see that this is from Lumion. taken off their website. You can go to the website, check it out. They're amazing images. But to produce stuff like this, you need to be super, super clued up on what to do. And that in itself is a huge task, because when it comes to materials and texture mapping, you're taking on a whole new career besides being a designer to create all these other things. And yes, softwares are much easier to use, but to make it look good like this can take a while, until the client's happy with it and your boss is happy with it, or you happy with it if you work for yourself, so very complex process, any visualization process. And you may say, oh yeah, I can do that in AI in 5 minutes. Okay, so AI, you lose complete control over your process. You can't tweak things the way that you could if you're using D5 Render or Lumion or Twinmotion. You can't do that. So it's a very complex process, and AI is just another tool in this process. It's not a solution, and so on and so forth. Let's just move on. So we all know who geniuses are. We have Mozart, we have Frank Lloyd Wright, Antonio Gaudi, Le Corbusier. These guys knew what they were doing with their process. It was really, at the top, you've got Louis Kahn there. These guys were the top of their game, and you need to be on top of your game if you're going to be doing 3D visualization with photorealistic render. So Norman Foster says that the pencil and computers are, if left to their own devices, are equally dumb and only good as the person driving them. So all these tools that have manifest with the virtual desktop are just tools. They're not a solution. And when you look at the computer as a solution, then you end up getting in trouble, because that's what most people do. They look at the computer as something that's going to do it for them. And if you look at it with that perspective, you're going to obscure the whole process. It's important to know that the computer is another tool, just like the ruler, the set square, the drawing board, and you need to use the tools of the computer in the same way. So let's jump forward. We're going to get into some really interesting stuff. We're going to be taking a look at some exceptional drawings by Frank Lloyd Wright. And why we're going to speak about Frank Lloyd Wright is because he's the progenitor of my render process, and he's the foundation to why I do what I do. And there's so much we can learn from Frank and his team at Taliesin, and we can find out so much information about what the client likes. And this all started in the 1890s. That's exactly when Frank, I guess, got out of university and he started producing his design and architecture, and some mind-blowing stuff we're going to take a look at tonight. So on the right, you can see Marion Griffin Mahoney. She worked for Frank. She was one of his perspective artists. I'm sure Frank knew how to do perspectives too, and did himself in his early career all his beautiful drawings. But then I guess as time moved on, he had bigger studios. He also employed people to do his perspectives, and they produced some amazing stuff. So let's take a look at why Frank is so important, because he used the tools that were available to him at his time. And we're going to just jump into a bit of a visual presentation of that so that you can see what they actually produce. And thereafter, what we're going to do, you've got to stay online for this, because after that, we're going to take a look at how we can replicate that process, as well as how students of mine have replicated a similar process by using the PC as a tool. So we have more tools at our disposal, and we're going to speak about the sketch-like render in a way that you'll understand what's going on. So let's just jump into that. Give me 1 second just to find the folder. The reason why I have everything in the folders is because we need to be able to zoom into the images, and that's going to give us the ability to appreciate them. You can't just look at an image from a distance on the computer as a small icon. You need to be able to zoom in it. So we're going to take a look at maybe 10 of these images, and we're just going to describe them, and you'll see why they're so exciting. Is everyone on board? We've got 42 people here. Thumbs up if you're still awake. Everyone's still awake? Okay, brilliant. Awesome. Ron, great. Fantastic. Great to have everyone here. Thanks for spending some time with me tonight. Let's jump in. Okay, what we are going to do is, everyone seeing this particular image? Okay, so all of these images are referenced or Visions of Right, amazing website. But what we're going to do, it's a collection of all Frank Lloyd Wright's work, or most of it, and we're going to take a closer look at it. We're going to look much closer at it so we can actually see the genius. This is in 1913. These guys were taking plans. Obviously, the Renaissance people did it as well, but, you know, in modern day era, they were taking rough plans and creating amazing analytical perspectives out of analytical geometry. And you can see the whole idea of bringing context, bringing line work, because they were working with pens and pencil crayon here and just really putting this all together for the client. Now, if I was the client in 1913 and I saw this particular image of what is about to be built for me, I go, oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing. And there's so much that you can learn from this particular image, you know. The only thing that's lacking from this particular image at the moment is the size of the human being. So we're going to speak about that in context. Here's some more images. Take a look. We're going to go through a whole bunch, and they add a better resolution than I've ever seen. So that's why I'm so excited, because we can zoom into them and we can actually appreciate them on a different level. Take a look at this. Line work, foliage, grass, even sort of the brick patterns on the surface. And this almost looks like a SketchUp image. And the reason why these images are so powerful is because the way that the plan sections and elevations were done, the perspectives sort of look like them as well. And what's happened these days with photorealistic renders is that the perspectives are photorealistic and they look like reality, and they're super boring because now everyone's trying to mimic reality. God knows why. Why is everyone trying to mimic reality when you can do cool stuff like this and make it look handcrafted? So the handcrafted image is very powerful because it speaks about process. It speaks about the excitement of architectural design. And when you give a 3D rendered image, it's pretty boring. I think so. I think there are artists that are absolutely amazing at doing photorealistic stuff, but they're few and far between. But I do think that it has its place. But during the design conversation, something of this quality is going to get your client very excited. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, in a way, it's a little bit easier to digest in a photorealistic render. It's less, if you want to call it, authoritative. It doesn't dictate every single nuance and detail. And that, in a way, leaves space for the client to have space to imagine. Okay, guys, very important. So here you go, different images. We're going to go quickly. This is Marin Country Fair Amphitheater. This is Frank's work from his office later in his career, more sophisticated, almost looking like computer renders. And what I found when I was going through all the work, it took me hours. When I went back to his earlier work, it was much more impactful. And maybe it's because he was more hands-on towards the beginning of the century. It went until 1959. But when you look at the earlier work, which we're going to take a look at now, is really impactful. But take a look at the line work. So everything's in here. You get this immediate feeling of scale and size when you take a look at his work. And you take a look at the size of the people and the stadium, so you can immediately get a sense or geolocate yourself in time and space. And that's really the power of Frank Lloyd Wright. There's so much you can learn. There are trees, there's water. It's everything that you need to make a design believable. A lot of designers leave all of that out. And why? I have no idea, because the context is part of the design. Take a look at the distance. There's a village. That's unbelievable, you know, and just the amount of thought that's gone into this perspective. And there you've got another design of his bridging the valley there. So there's just so much that you can learn from these perspectives. Take a look at this perspective. I actually didn't write the name of this drawing down, but the sense of scale, the sense of line work, the sense of craftsmanship, it's just mind-blowing. And this was all done on a drawing board. Can you imagine how long it took to create such a beautiful, beautiful, evocative image? And if I was the client, immediately as you look at this, number one, You don't have to work out what's going on. You can see there's a car going into a parking area. There's a woman standing here. That's the scale of the space. The line work is absolutely amazing. The foliage, you can even see a tree behind the building. And just you can see that there's just a huge amount of thought that's gone into putting these perspectives together. And this is another reason why Frank Lloyd Wright is the master, because he knew that this was a tool. You know, he didn't neglect his 3D perspectives. It's one thing, guys. It's one thing getting clients. It's very difficult to get clients, okay? But a lot of companies are really good at getting clients. But once you've got those clients, you have to be good at design. So that's the second stage. And the third stage is, if you're good at design, you need to be good at communicating that design to your client. And that communication is obviously coupled with your narrative, your understanding of why you're doing something. So you need those 3 to 4 components in place to win projects. You need clients. You need to know how to get clients. And I don't teach that. I teach the rest of the process. But getting clients, some people are really great at it. But the communication stage is critical to stimulating design fees, to creating a catalyst with your clients. So if you're going to show your clients at the early design stage that this is the project that you're doing for them, and this is what they're getting, this is a chapel, I think, and then basically they're going to say, yes, we're going to sign on the dotted line. That's what you want. That's what you need. That's what the process is. And that's what Frank understood. And these are early design drawings. These aren't advanced design drawings. These are definitely not. You can even see the writing's very rough. But we can just see all the elements, trees, people. Let's go quickly. Let's find some great ones. Here's the Illinois, 1956. I heard that Burj Khalifa was fashioned on this one. But take a look, you know, showing the client what's going to be happening in the near future, right at the beginning of the process. And boom, you know, as I know, hundreds of projects that they designed, you know, even there, take a look. They're showing the Eiffel Tower, the Empire State, the pyramids in context with this particular building. But the whole idea is to get the client on board. Here you go, some more advanced drawings. Amazing, amazing drawing. I'm not so mad about the design, but it's really interesting. You know, we have people, we have cars, we have buildings in the context, very stylized drawing, but immediately you can see what this project is trying to achieve. You don't have to think about it. You know that that's what you are going to get. And the most incredible thing about Frank Lloyd Wright is, I guess it's very subtle, is that if you do not have these mental triggers in your design, if you do not have people to generate scale, if you don't have cars to generate scale, if you don't have foliage to generate scale, then the client cannot relate to the image. And so you need to learn how to do that. You need to learn how to bring all these particular elements together. Let's move on. Point View Residence, 1953. Once again, these drawings are all referenced to Visions of Wright on the web. Amazing, amazing place where I managed to source high-resolution images of Frank Lloyd Wright. And take a look at this. Just look at the line work, the foliage. So a 3D visualization doesn't give you this type of line work. Even the hatchwork on the walls here, you can see it. And then not only that, they managed to project shadows. So you've got this combination of all these elements coming together in creating this phenomenal composition, which is just like a Picasso. I wouldn't call it a Picasso, but just the most amazing visual. And so the client can understand the scheme. Let's just take a look at a bunch more. And what we're going to do after we've taken a look at a few more, we're going to jump into, I guess, some of the student work. And then thereafter, we're going to jump into the process. We're going to jump into SketchUp. So stay on board and just, we're going to go as quickly as we can. We're half an hour into the process. Take a look at this water, foliage, even individuals standing here, just to give you a sense of scale. Mind-blowing perspectives. This was done in 1949. Take a look at this sort of sectional perspective here. Just beautiful work, contemporary furniture, some people swimming. So when you bring all of these elements together, then really you imagine taking a look at this image without the furniture, without the people, just for 1 second, just stop. You wouldn't know what was going on. You wouldn't have a clue. It would just look like a mess. But because entourage and the foliage, the tables, the chairs, the sofa, even, in the background, people sitting on the sofa, you get a sense of what the space wants to be doing. And that's really the whole idea behind what we're talking about tonight. How to communicate to your client, how to pull all of this together, and what skills you need to pull this together. These are amazing, amazing projects. I've been sorting these out for the last couple of days, and I haven't managed to get through a quarter of them, but I selected some of these mind-blowing images that I actually couldn't believe. And most of these projects weren't built, but some were. There was even a project for Ayn Rand, who wrote The Fountainhead. He designed her house. But if you take a look, that there is this correlation between plan and perspective. But look how amazing these trees are. They're just phenomenal. Take a look at that. And that is the sign of the times. Take a look at that car. It's just really, that's the cars that they had at that era. Looking in 1947. So you're talking about just after World War II. And it's just really, says to the client, this is what I'm going to do for you. Sign on the dotted line. And that's what he was good at. McDonald House here. Let's take a look at these images. High resolution. We're going to zoom in here. Just magnificent. And you can notice in each of these the line work. The line work is always what's going to give that sense of craftsmanship. And so you're learning all about this process as we're speaking now. And you can see that when you think about photorealistic render, then there becomes a difficulty to understand that craftsmanship. And we're going to take a look at some more advanced drawings. This drawing absolutely blew my mind. This is a laundry, but it is so seductive that I was gobsmacked. I was sitting and looking at it and thinking, oh my God, this man is a genius. Take a look at this drawing. Look at the cars. Look at the shading, the stippling. Wow, just super amazing. And the date, 1945, can you believe it? So this is obviously a conceptual drawing, probably one of the first drawings done by hand. And take a look at these interiors here. So just super amazing imagery, just like, out of a Disney narrative. We'll just take a few Miller House. Oh, not Arthur Miller, but look how everything just is pulled together. It just comes together in the image. You know exactly what you're getting. So I think the most important thing to realize is that you're designing a product. You're designing a product for a client. And yes, it starts in the planning phase. And yes, the planning sections and elevations are super important. They is important as the perspectives, because you couldn't get a perspective from your design if you didn't have that. But then the communication at this level of the process, at the design conversation, is the most important thing. And this is how you'll get your clients to respond to you on a different level. And I can't tell you your experience, but my experience was that I started off with photorealistic renders for many years. And it was difficult. It was difficult to work in an environment where I had to design and then prepare photorealistic renders, which was my choice. But I always was passionate about rendering, in 3D renders of my own design, because it was sort of like the best part. And I just started using SketchUp when SketchUp started to evolve in about 2003, 2004. And it just gave me a lease on life. It just gave me this whole new way to experience my design quickly. And I started using Revit with SketchUp, and I would export everything from Revit into SketchUp. And we're going to speak more about that. And then I would be using Photoshop for my layout. And then that whole process evolved over time. And so just really exciting, to be able, these guys were just using pens and pencils, there was no software. That was their software. Let's just zoom out here. Here you go, Eagle Feather. Sorry, I didn't record the date. I think it's also 1915 maybe, or earlier on in his career. You can see the level and the quality of the work here, but take a look at this drawing. This is exquisite work. I mean, you're taking a look at mastery here. Just every single line in detail, and this was done on a drawing board. So you can only understand how good he was when you take a look at, what he managed to conceive here and then turn it into perspective. Just really amazing, huge amount of detail and refinement. Let's just zoom out here. Another project, Frank Rent's house, 1938. So as you get earlier in the years, the work actually gets better because I think Frank was younger and I think maybe he was more in control of everything. But I mean, here you go. Take a look how beautiful this little cottage is. Wow. My God, I couldn't believe it when I looked at it. I just thought, this is great stuff. Hey? 1938. Wow. Let's take a look at some more of the stuff. And thank you once again to Visions of Right. And take a look at this interior of Lifehouse. This is like a sectional perspective. Just, it's got plants, it's got, this vase, it's got these chairs, someone in the kitchen over there, if you take a look, and so on and so forth. Just really amazing. Get a feeling for the space as if you're really there. And another important thing I wanted to suggest before we get into some student work, and I want you to stay because we're going to get into some of the process. I'm going to try and move as quickly as possible. We may just go over an hour. Is that these are still images. Still images are extremely powerful. You do not have to have virtual reality. You don't have to have Oculus glasses. You don't have to do all that type of stuff to win a project. You need some beautiful still images on the page. It needs to be printed out for the client. I normally say to my students, do not show anyone stuff on the screen, print it out, because once it manifests on paper, there's a different look and feel. And that's exactly, it's a trick. It's a psychological trick to just blow the client away. Print it out on paper. Make sure that there's always a copy in front of your client on the paper. Take a look at this. Christian Catholic Church. What a beautiful line drawing. Now, this is obviously done with, I guess, a rotring pen, or maybe not. It could be a very hard pencil. I'm not quite sure. But take a look at the line work. Now, this shows craftsmanship. It gets me excited, and it really says to me, wow, I'm just super excited to see how this thing gets built. And there you go. There's an elevation just to complement it. Let's take a look at some more. Axonometric, almost perspective of this particular building. Just magnificent work, trees, foliage. Anyway, so let's just go a little bit further. Gosh, take a look at this image. I don't have the name on this particular image, so I can't remember it offhand. But it's from an earlier drawing, I think in the 1912 sort of year. But just magnificent work. Once again, looks like it's been done on butcher paper. You can see that they've rubbed out a lot to get it to this level of perfection. How amazing, really beautiful stuff. There you go, another sort of sketch by some of I don't know, he may have even done it, but you never know, because there were so many projects, hundreds and hundreds of projects that were executed. And let's take a look. The last project. I think we already saw this image in the beginning. Very magnificent image. We're not going to repeat that one. Let's just go. Thomas House. I guess we can stop soon. We're going to just take a look, different contextual stuff happening here. And there you go. So just really magnificent work. So what I wanted to suggest to the audience is that the process that I've been putting together is called the Artful Sketch-like Render process, and it uses SketchUp and Photoshop. And what we are going to do now is we're going to take a look at some of the student work. It's not exactly like Frank Lloyd Wright, but it gives the student, gives the architect, the interior designer, a set of tools to create similar type of imagery. And we're going to take a look at that now. The alternative is to become someone who specializes in 3D visualization, which is pretty intense. But let's just take a look at some of the work that our students have accomplished. There's a lot here, so I'm not going to take a look at everything. We're just going to take a look at a bit of the work. how many people got? I've got 44 people. That's a great turnout. Thank you for everyone coming. So here you go. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. This is the perspective by Eric Rich, just something that he did in, I guess, in the afternoon. We also use foliage from different sources. Some of the foliage is generated in SketchUp, some of the foliage is generated with Midjourney, but you can really make stuff look really amazing. And you can see SketchUp allows us to create the handcrafted style. It allows us to create line work. It allows us to create shadows, and it allows us to embellish our models with people. So we're just going to go through this process really quickly. Some urban design here. This is one of my students, Juan from Toronto, just really amazing. Also, you know, taking a look at the urban context, it's mind-blowing what you can achieve if you've got a great model. So this is the artful sketch-like render process. This is a project that he put together. Take a look at the detail. You can combine stuff using Photoshop, SketchUp, mix and match. You know, it's sort of like mixed media. And but all of this has been evolved in SketchUp. The main model was a Revit model. Doesn't matter what you model in. Obviously, if you model in Revit or AutoCAD, you can bring that model into SketchUp. So why are we saying that SketchUp is so important is because it forms a bridge. And we're going to explain to you what that bridge is. It doesn't, a lot of people are exporting straight from Revit into Lumion and straight from Revit into D5 Render and straight from Revit into V-Ray. And the problem is that's a silly way to work because you lose control. Firstly, these softwares are difficult to manipulate when it comes to rendering. And secondly, you want to do a lot more stuff to your model in SketchUp, and that SketchUp gives you that flexibility and that freedom. And we're going to start looking at that in a few minutes. So don't go, hold on until we take a look at that. Different images, you know. Now you could say, oh, no, to use SketchUp, blah, blah, blah. I've got SketchUp. I can do this. It's a process. You need to be able to understand how to soften the renders because SketchUp is very, if you want to call it, rigid. And so you need to be able to soften renders. And I'm going to show you some amazing work. Some urban drawings here. Take a look at this magnificent project. You know, almost looks like Copic marker. You're not quite sure, you know, but still the line work, the shadow work, the color, all looks really, really super amazing. A planned version of it, just amazing. You know, you could really do some amazing illustrative work with this particular workflow. Take a look at this particular building. This is from Guan in Toronto. Beautiful render of this particular model. And he posted this a few days ago. This is one of my students who does interior renders. Got a more of a free flow type of sketch look and feel by Brigitte. She does really cool stuff as well. Really beautiful, beautiful renders, interior renders that almost look hand rendered. Take a look at the textures here. You cannot believe. Absolutely, absolutely mind blowing. Let's just move forward quickly. Some exterior renders by Brigitte, and you can really do some really amazing stuff, you know, embellishing it with people running, trees, cars, and obviously bringing scale to your building. It's very important to know how to bring scale to your building through all these psychological triggers. Here you go, an exterior of a building, magnificent. Let's just quickly go forward. Different views of the building, you know. Take a look at this. Plants, foliage, pot plants, glasses with the table, everything to bring your perspectives to life. Now, the main thing is that you need to understand how to create your design, and that's a modeling process. But once you've got your modeling process, then you need the ability to soften the renders, and that's really important. You know, take a look at this particular image. This is all done with SketchUp and Photoshop, and if you mix the two processes together, you can come up with the most extraordinary effects. And obviously there's a process in place and you need to understand that. That's very important to understand, you know. Let's just take a look. One of my students did this church about a year ago, Wayne, and take a look at how magnificent this particular drawing is, you know, once printed out. So you can see there's this crossover between a sort of a Frank Lloyd Wright image, a hybrid image. Take a look at this dog walking down the street here, but just bringing this whole space to life. And he modeled this straight off the web. It's his own model. And then we've got Angela, who just submitted these, a renovation in Ireland. She's actually on the call with us tonight. She's done some magnificent work. Sorry, I can't find the other one. But here you go. So ultimately, the ultimate destination is to build yourself some portfolios. And this is very, very important. And the way we do it is we do it on A3 or tabloid size, horizontal landscape paper, and not on a soft paper, but on a nice, decent hard card. And as you go through your career or your yearly, weekly projects, then you keep on printing the stuff out. And then towards the end of the year, you can bind it, or halfway through the year, quarterly, you can bind it. But you can create these mini portfolios as you move forward in your process. The whole thing is that you don't want to get 5 years down the line and then think, I've got to produce a portfolio now. That is a huge task. So you need to keep up with your own work, because your assets are your portfolio. And even if you're a company, they also part of your portfolio. So if you're a company or if you're an individual, make sure that portfolio is really important to you. Let's just see if there's a whole bunch of images. We have some interior images here. If you're into interiors, take a look at the magnificent interior over here. Can use this process for in the same way. We've got Angela, Brigitte, gosh, a whole bunch of people. Some really amazing images, almost like Frank Lloyd Wright, if you want to call it that. Different flavors of design and color. So here you go from Eric Richer. He just submitted this, a very beautiful interior, and you can also create those type of interiors by using SketchUp. So that's really what you can produce in SketchUp with Photoshop. After you've modeled it, you can model it in SketchUp, you can model it in Revit, you can model it in AutoCAD, and then you can bring it all together and create really amazing stuff. Some of these images take 20 minutes, some take 15 minutes, some have taken 8 minutes, and my students have done stuff in about 8.5 minutes. So, you can really get good at this process. You can make images happen quickly. Obviously, in the beginning, it's not that easy. You need to learn the process. So probably take a few hours in the beginning to get to grips with each type of image. But let's jump into SketchUp. Is everyone still on board? Let's take a look. Who's on board? Great. We are going to jump into SketchUp now. And I'm just going to jump into a project here just to show you why SketchUp is so powerful. If you've never seen SketchUp before, give me 1 second. Just have a sip of water here. And then after this, we will, open up for some questions. I'm not going to have a huge amount of time to cover everything. There we go. So this is Taliesin, and this is basically a Frank Lloyd Wright building. So I thought I would use a Frank Lloyd Wright building just to show you how powerful this project is in the context of Frank Lloyd Wright. So this is a model that I didn't model this. This is a borrowed model, but I was looking for Frank Lloyd Wright. But I've really brought it into SketchUp to show you the power of the imagery. Now, the beauty about SketchUp is that you can find views really easy. You're not dealing with technology. I'm not typing in numbers here, and I'm not trying to work out what height this is and what height that is. I am just moving my mouse, bottom line. And really, that's what's so powerful. There's no keys, shortcut keys on the keyboard. I can just move around my design simply by twisting my mouse, pushing the middle of button in, and just finding the views that I really, really want. Now, as you can see, SketchUp's got the ability to create line work. And that's why SketchUp is so special, because there are very few packages that create it with such ease. And yes, you can create line work in Revit and AutoCAD, but then you've got to deal with all the other stuff that those softwares don't have. And so SketchUp has the ability to bring, like, for instance, cows. You can bring cows and people and entourage in, and simply you can just click on them, for instance, and you can move them around. It's that simple. You can just go and in 1 second move it from point A to point B. And the same with cows. I'm not going to move too much stuff around because it all works in the same way. And you can see, you can just really grasp the power. That perspective is just super powerful. I mean, already there's you can just really write home about it. It's just absolutely seductive. And I'm sure if Frank saw what I was doing right now, he'd be super impressed. But so really at the end of the day, you could get all these views. And once you've got all these views, you could export any of these views instantly, which takes a few seconds. And you could bring it, into the process of render. So these images are a little bit hard. So what one needs to do is one needs to soften them up. Also, the beauty about SketchUp is that you can adjust the shadow work really easily. And you can, obviously change the shadow work. It doesn't give a photorealistic render in this mode. Obviously, you need to plug V-Ray or Enscapes into here. But we're not after photorealistic renders. We want to create renders that look hand-rendered. So this whole process is really pivoting on that whole foundational idea of hand rendering. And you could also get views from the top, right? Let's take a look. So that's a saved view. So once you find a view, you can save it. You just need to hit update and you can save the view. And then if you for instance, want a different view, you can save it. So this is a view from above. So once you found it, you go update, you save that view. And then once you want a top view, basically you can go straight into top view over here, and you can switch perspective off so that it's completely orthographic. And there you can see you've got a view that's completely orthographic. Now, the ability to export these images out at a high resolution, for instance, you just need to go to export over here, and you can export it out in a few seconds to your desktop. And the options here, you can select how big you want it in pixels, and boom, on your desktop in a few seconds, ready for your presentation. So this is really going to streamline the way you work. It's just phenomenal. And the whole idea is to create this in-between tool between SketchUp and the rest of what you are using. Anyway, guys, we're just going to jump back into the presentation quickly, and I'm going to tell you what else is coming. So we spoke about the handcrafted render, and that was really what we were after. And what I wanted to suggest is that we are going to open up for questions for 5 minutes. But before I say that, I wanted to just present this slide. Give me a second. So this week we are going to be opening up for a one-on-one transformational call. And simply all you need to do, if you want to jump on a call with me, I'll take a look at your existing workflow and we'll give you a critique. You can see here in this little box that says, deep look at your skill set and workflow. We're going to create an action plan about what you're already doing, and we're going to help you leverage your existing skills. It's completely free. And then also on Wednesday, I'm going to start with the Hybrid Architects Toolkit, a 5-day to skyrocket your 3D perspective workflow. Watch out for those emails. I'm going to be sending it out, and you can take a look at the offering. It's going to be a very short training just to show you how to put all the stuff together in a simple way. And that's also coming up on Wednesday. So just kind of take a look at your email and wait for those links. So what I would suggest, if you want to jump on a transformational call, I'm going to post this in the chat right now. So if you take a look on the chat, conceptdesignarchitect.com, book me. There are 10 positions available. You just need to jump on as quickly as possible and then book a time with me, and we'll set up a time that we can have a chat. We can take a look at your design process. We can take a look at what you're doing, and I'd love to give you some feedback. Really, the whole idea is that feedback is super important. If you're a designer, no man, no woman is an island. You need to be able to get that feedback to move further in your career. So what I would suggest is to just simply go there in the next few minutes, grab your spot because they disappear quickly. And we have hundreds of people booking these calls. We also want you to be able to benefit from it. And then we will take a look at what you're doing. It also helps us with our marketing. That's why we do it. And I'm going to open up for questions right now.